The terms pivoting and transitioning are thrown around a lot and get used somewhat interchangeably, but pivoting means changing the comp you're going to play to a different one. In other words, you were leaning towards playing a comp, then something happened in game, and now you want to play something else. Say for example you wanted to play Vel'Koz as you already had one tier and some AP items, but then you get dropped another tier from Krugs, and since now you have 2 tiers, you can slam a blue buff, and you can go for Karma instead. In that case, you just pivoted from Vel'Koz to Karma. Transitioning is similar but different. It is the act of swapping out your old board for a new one. The amount of units you swap out depends on how large the transition is. It can be anything from just a couple of units to swapping out literally your entire board. So in this video, I'll go over how to pivot and transition, but most importantly, when to do these things. There are multiple different reasons to pivot, but most of the time it is because of your items, the units you have, or how contested a comp is. If we look at items first, a lot of comps have core items, and with this information we can know which comps we can play and which we can't play at any point in time. In every game of TFT, you should always default towards a comp, meaning that you're going to play that comp unless you get something better for another comp. The best tip is to leave every comp open, and then as you slam items and get more components, you start eliminating comps one by one until there are only a few left that you can play. The units you have can matter a lot, or not too much, depending on what comp you're pivoting to. For example, if you already have a bunch of upgraded Forgotten units, you're more inclined to pivot to Draven than if you have no Forgotten units at all. But with Draven, for example, you can still very easily play Draven without any Forgotten units pre-transition, as you are usually only just playing 3 of them, and they can be found during the rolldown. On the other side of the coin, we have Skirmisher Jax. With that comp, you don't really want to pivot into it, unless you already have some Skirmishers, as it is not a very flexible comp, and some Skirmishers can be hard to upgrade at higher levels. The last reason to pivot is if a comp is too contested. In general, most comps that revolve around 4 cost carries can support 2 to 3 players at max. With 2, it is very doable, and when there are 3 players, you can still hit, but it will definitely be harder. Some comps, however, can only support 1 or 2 people, and a lot of those comps are reroll comps, where multiple people want to hit the same 3-star units. In that case, it might be better to pivot into something else, so that you don't go 7th and 9th place with the other person. When should you transition? The boring but correct answer is when your board post-transition is stronger than your board pre-transition. This essentially means that you never want to make your board weaker at any point in the game. There are some exceptions though. If you hit a lot of units for your comp, but you get a little bit weaker by transitioning, it might still be better to transition, as you still get to sell the units on the board for money, and therefore make your econ better. Another thing you can do is to do a slow transition, meaning you just swap out some units, but not all of them. Once you have decided that you are transitioning, this is how you do it. Step 1. Know which units you're keeping and which you're selling. This is crucial as you need to be aware of which units you can sell and which you can't. If you are unaware of this, you might have to stop and think about it in the middle of your transition. Then it will take you a lot more time to transition than necessary. And if there's one thing we always need more of during a transition, it is as much time as possible. The goal here is to have the post-transition board in mind before you start the transition, so that you can get to your post-transition state earlier. Step 2. Sell the champions you don't need and put in the champions you do need. This is to clean up our bench so that we have more space to pick up units when we roll. And it is also to make sure we have the right board together once the fight starts, in case we're still rolling once it begins. Step 3 is to roll for more upgrades. Once you have sold a bunch of units from your previous board, you will be sitting on a decent amount of gold. This gold wants to be spent upgrading your board. How much of that gold you roll will depend on what comp you're playing, and the answer will be different for each individual comp. Step 4. Make and place items if you have not already. The reason this is closer to the end is because we can place items while the fight is going on, and also if we have a bunch of components on our bench, those need to be made into items as well. If the fight is currently going on, buy a champion you don't need from the shop, make an item on that unit, and sell it so you can place full items on your board instead of placing components. This is something I personally do to avoid misclicking, as a misclicked component might completely destroy your game. Step 5 is to scout and reposition. This step is usually pretty hard to pull off as you won't have that much time for it at the end of most transitions, but people are most vulnerable when they're transitioning, and therefore it is easy to position for the people transitioning as their boards will be a lot weaker. I also want to add that sometimes this order will be a bit different depending on what type of transition you're doing. Sometimes if you are completely changing your board, the order might be a bit different than if you're just swapping out some units. Now I will take a look at some transitions from my own game so we can take what we just learned into practice. Here I'm at the Wolves round and I'm looking to roll down next turns. Since I'm rolling at level 7, I am not looking to do a full transition. The goal here is to end up with some form of Draven comp that still uses the Cavalier frontline. I start off by leveling to 7 as I have decent odds of hitting at least one Draven there. Then I start rerolling. As soon as I hit Draven, I sell Nocturne and put him in. This is to mentally make it easier to see which units I need, as the board I'm ending up with is not a traditional comp you can memorize. Then I continue rerolling to hit more upgraded frontline, and better units in general as I'm still running a 1-star Sejuani and a 1-star Kha'Zix. Once I hit Viego and Rel, I think I am stable for stage 4, so I stop rolling here. Now it's all about putting in the correct units for my board. I then place items as the fight is starting, and once I've placed items, I sell the units I do not need for eco, and I'm done with my transition. This transition is very common at stage 4-1, as you're not looking to full pivot your board. You're just looking to strengthen your mid-game board into one that can carry you to level 8, where you then will roll down for your final board. Now we're still in the same game, and we are at the Raptors. Next turn I'm looking to roll for my endgame comp, so right now I am mentally preparing myself for that, so I know which units I'm looking for. When rolling at level 7, you need to be a lot more flexible with which units you pick up, as you are selling some of them at level 8 anyways. But when rolling at level 8, you're looking for units that will be in your comp until the end of the game. My goal here is to hit Rel 2-star, Draven 2-star, get Mordekaiser in over Riven, and the 2 remaining units wants to be whichever 4 or 5 cost units I hit that are relevant to my team. During this roll down, I'm just looking to pick up any 4 cost units that I hit, and once the round is coming to a close, I make a Frozen Heart on Viego as I'm not getting more components. On the next round, I keep rerolling as I'm still missing upgrades. Once I hit Rise, I thought I was stable enough to push level 9, as this lobby was weak enough so I could get away with it. In the second example, I'm playing Karma, and I was able to fast 8 with this board. The goal here is to level up to 8 and roll to upgrade my team, as well as finding endgame pieces of my comp. I end up rolling and hitting multiple 2-stars, therefore I stop and decide to eco back up again. From here, I can either decide to push level 9, or I can roll more on stage 5-1. Therefore, I stop here so I can focus on my economy over the next 2 turns. Now I'm at 5-1, and here I was very much on the fence on whether to roll or to go level 9. I knew that the Vladimir, Warwick, Gragas and Riven are too weak to be in my endgame comp. Therefore I decide to roll, as I need to sack most of stage 5, if not all of it, to have enough gold to roll for a stable board at level 9. So at 5-1, I roll down and I end up hitting Taric 2 and I replace Warwick with him. I don't have enough time to roll more, as I started very late into that round. On 5-2, I keep rolling and find a Garen as well as a Lux 2-star. I keep rolling and hit another Rice and Rel. This gameplay was from the start of the set, so I was not 100% sure if it was stronger to take out 4 Dawbringers for 2 Mystics and 2 Ironclad, so I had to think about it for another turn. At 5-3, I decided I wanted to take them out, mostly to get the extra gold for selling Riven and Soraka so I could push for level 9. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below what video you want me to make next, and if you want to get better at TFT, join the Discord. We got nearly 3,000 other players there who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord server as well. So take care and see you in the next video.